Welcome, everybody, to this S&T press conference. It's my pleasure to have Iratxe García Pérez with us, our group president, who will have her first anniversary in her function and in office as S&T Group President tomorrow. So ahead of a very busy plenary debate, she will now speak on various topics that are on the agenda. And we are grateful for all those who connected in a remote way. I would just to remind you that if you would like to ask a question, please connect via Skype and then put your question via the Voxbox EP, so there they will be brought to us. With this having said, and of course also welcome to those in the room here, I hand over to Iratxe.
Thank you. Buenos días.
Good morning. Good morning to everybody. Those of you who are actually physically present in the room and those of you who are following us via the remote participation link. Just like on the previous opportunities, I would like to thank the European Parliament services for the efforts that they have made and their goodwill to allow us to continue with our meetings and to be able to communicate through our press conferences in these exceptional circumstances. And I would very much hope, of course, that you are all well and healthy. And I very much hope as well that as soon as possible we can actually meet all together here in what is our shared home. We're celebrating the plenary session at a crucial moment for the European Union. And the Council, the European Council on Thursday is obviously a key council. Now, I think there has been progress, there has been evolution in the debate since what we saw over the past few weeks and since the Commission has put forward its proposal. The various experts and international bodies do agree that we need an expansive economy, i.e. one based on investment. We need a large-scale stimulus to reboost the economy and to tackle the crisis, especially when it comes to the transition of our economy. Thanks to our political group, this has been set as a priority. We have the new Green Deal, environmental sustainability, economic and social sustainability. The question is not whether we should spend or not, whether we should do it at national level or European level. There are those who prefer the national level, which means, of course, they're turning their back on the benefits of the internal market, the aspect of convergence, and the possibility to build up true economic and political convergence. The Council obviously wants to arrive at an agreement as soon as possible, in days, in weeks, but at least before the end of the month, so that we have a proper MFF, a multi-year budget, which can be implemented as of the 1st of January next year. When Mrs. van der Leyen, the President of the Commission, proposed the recovery plan and the MFF, obviously we want to see this all linked together. The recovery plan must be linked to the MFF in such a way that the European Parliament can exercise its co-decision-making powers, because there are very many important fundamental aspects. If we take a look at the MFF, the amount proposed by the Commission is a minimum amount as far as my political group is concerned, and it shouldn't be a choice between financing traditional policies or new policies. So we have to ensure that all of them are compatible and that we continue to finance instruments that have proved their worth, that have worked well, and have made a contribution to the objective of creating more Europe. For example, Erasmus+, Creative Europe, and everything concerned to related to the area of justice and freedoms. And then, of course, it's absolutely essential that we have our youth guarantee as well. When it comes to paying off the debt, if we take a look at bonds, repayment of debt, obviously this is a debate we have to have. And economic viability is going to depend on how much we invest now. So we can't set too short a repayment period. Moving on to own resources, this particular debate, of course, is linked to the overall debate that we're going to be holding. The only way to alleviate member states is to have new direct income for Europe. This is something that my political group has been asking for a long time, and I think the time is ripe for us to move forward on this own resources proposal. And we're also in favour of having a subcommittee on fiscality in the European Parliament. Today, during the European Parliament's part session, if we can vote on this particular subcommittee, it will start its work in September, and we would very much hope that we have a socialist chairmanship for that committee at such a crucial time, a crucial moment when we're discussing these issues, because we want a fairer, more progressive taxation to alleviate the pressure on the member states, especially when it comes to financing the recovery plan. Moving on to conditionality, this is another important issue. Over the past few days, we've seen a rather biased discussion on conditionality. When we voted the last resolution within the European Parliament, all of us agreed on the principles, i.e. that we have to tie and link the fund to strengthening those sectors which suffered the most during the crisis, the health sector or certain sectors of industry, key sectors of industry. So we feel that the recovery plan has to be linked up to the aspects of environmental sustainability, social sustainability, the modernization of our economies, and digitalization. So there is agreement on this, an important agreement, and the only thing that our political group is going to be suggesting by way of conditionality is what I've just outlined. Any other kind of debate that a political group wishes to open up on conditionality will not get the support of the Socialists and Democrats. Obviously, this is an issue that is taking up a lot of our time, everything to do with the MFF and the recovery plan, but there are other points on the agenda of the part session. For example, racial discrimination. This is something which has come from our political group, and obviously we share the regret and condemnation of George Floyd's death and everything that's happening. Obviously, as legislators, we have to help set in place measures which are going to help societies become fairer and more equal and freer. So I think it's important that we have been able to place this particular point on the Parliament's agenda for the plenary session with a motion for resolution, and our political group is going to insist on the need for a legislative instrument and block the anti-discrimination legislation so that we do have the necessary legislative tools to tackle these issues. Then the Conference on the Future of Europe. This particular initiative is blocked in Council at the moment. The conference should have started on the 9th of May. Obviously, due to the exceptional circumstances we're living through at the moment, this was not possible. But our political group feels that today we have to send out a very clear message to Council. This continues to be a priority, and it's more necessary today than ever. The COVID crisis has highlighted the need to carry out reform within the European Union so that we're more flexible, we can react more quickly, and so that we can coordinate properly in policy areas where at the moment we don't have this capacity because we don't have the requisite instruments. So we are going to send out this signal to the Council, ask them to adopt a common approach, and hopefully in the autumn get the Conference on the Future of Europe underway. Participation of civil society there is going to have to be absolutely essential. This is a debate that should not happen exclusively within the bubble of the European Parliament, the bubble of the European institutions. It is a debate that has to be a grassroots and bottom-up, top-down debate. It has to cover all these dimensions. And as far as my political group is concerned, this is a priority. So those are the main issues I wish to address. And obviously, I am now willing to take any questions that you would have. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Iratxe. I would like to check if there are any questions here in the room. Otherwise, I would go to the online questions. Okay, good. Then I would start with questions from Griselda. Griselda, are you online? I can
Hola.
see you. Hola.
Oui, I'm here. Hola.
Okay.
Très bonjour.
Good morning. Iratxe, I have two questions. To date, the main political groups in the European Parliament have always tried to coordinate before the European Council. 1 or 2 resolutions have been adopted, but the European Council is on Friday, and this whole debate is reopened. So I'm wondering whether there is going to be any kind of new parliamentary resolution, new parliamentary initiative and whether the campaign of the Partido Popular in Spain against the government is going to have an influence on this. The second question, we've seen the EPP have said that there is no compromise when it comes to the presidency of the Eurogroup with the Socialists. So I am wondering who is going to be chairing this, because in theory it should be a minister from a socialist group. And I just wanted to know whether the Eurogroup forms part of the pact, the agreement that exists for sharing out the posts of president of the different European institutions. Thank you. On your first question, there isn't going to be a resolution. That's not on our agenda. The position of the European Parliament in the light of the proposal from the Commission, which is going to be debated at the next European Council, is very clear. The Parliament's position is very clear, so we feel there's no need to prepare another resolution. The European Parliament, with a great majority, has asked for a major investment plan where we have to focus on European priorities, as has been proposed by the Commission. So this means that there is no resolution as such. It is true that up until now, in the past, there have been common positions, common initiatives across the different political groups, and obviously we wish to continue to do this, where you want to draw on the strength of the European Parliament so that we can bring our influence to bear, perhaps condition the debates in Council. But obviously, as far as my political group is concerned, the common position or a common position obviously depends on a very clear issue, and that is that the priorities in the plan be those of environmental and social responsibility, digitization, and my political group is never going to allow the possibility to move on to further steps, which would be based on austerity, as was the case in 2008 with the economic crisis. Obviously, an austerity plan cannot be the response to the crisis that we're experiencing at the moment. We are going to be working for common positions, but obviously it depends where we are, what we're trying to do. Our future is at stake, and our citizens would not forgive us if we failed to prepare for the future. So the response cannot be economic cuts or austerity or any kind of action on the part of the national governments that is not in line with what we wish to do. We need reform, but reform along the lines of what the Commission is proposing. We need to modernise our economies, make them more sustainable in environmental terms. We need more social equity and support for priority areas. So this is what we are going to be supporting. These are our priorities from the S&D group. And obviously, we will continue to work with other political groups on common positions. And on the Eurogroup question, I must say I'm rather surprised. I was rather surprised to see news on this in some of the press from the EPP. I don't know whether this is a majority view in the EPP or on the basis of some information that an individual member of the EPP has put forward. The only thing I can say here is that this is a moment of essential importance for the project of the European Union and the survival of the euro itself. And the decision as to who is going to have the responsibility of chairing the Eurogroup, that is a very important decision. And I very much trust that somebody like Nadia Calvino, who is a very well-respected person in the area of the European Union in this particular field, she's very well respected for the work she's done, and obviously she will be working for the good of the European Union, the good of the project we're working on.
Thanks a lot also to Griselda and Iratxe. Now it's Luis Pellicer de El País avec une question.
Hola, buenos días.
Good morning, Iratxe. Much along the same lines as Griselda's question, that austerity is not the answer. I would like to ask whether any party, perhaps the EPP, in this case, has been suggesting austerity measures to try and present a united face to the Council, and whether or not that could be supported. And then, following on again from Griselda's second question, as a socialist, are you willing to fight for a role for Nadia Calviño in Eurogroup. Thank you, Luis. On your first question, of course, if there is no common position within this Parliament, then it's because some people have decided to go off-piste and choose a different route, and that's, well, that is what it is. If we don't have a shared position for the next council, at the moment we haven't been able to reach an agreement, but we have done so in the past, and we'll continue working. We've made significant compromises in the past, and I haven't given up. I'm not saying that tomorrow we won't be able to support a joint initiative within this Parliament, but of course any common position could not be based on us giving up our fundamental principles. We came into this crisis saying that the solution cannot be austerity. The solution cannot be the same opted for in 2008, leaving people behind, and we are going to fight to the very last minute to ensure that that is the case. We are convinced that this can be positive for Europe and for those countries which have suffered most from this crisis. The most positive way out would be a plan where we set our priorities out clearly, priorities for Europe, priorities which will be used to modernize our economies. This can be positive, but under no circumstances can we accept austerity, and social cuts cannot be used to find a way out of this situation. Secondly, Nadia Calviño. Of course, as European Socialists, we are going to work hard to ensure that the presidency of the Eurogroup remains within our political family, not just because it's our political family, but we are fully convinced that is the best for Europe. Thank you.
There are no more questions here in the room. Then I would like to close. Thanks, Iratxe García, and thank you for all of those who dialed in. We will be back, and we are looking forward to speaking to you again. Merci.
Thank you.